Marjorie Taylor Greene has been going through a little bit of an extreme makeover, MTG edition.
It does make for good television, but I think it is both. I think it's a distraction.
His entire unhinged reaction is a big guilty sign around his neck.
Who knows what we'll get next week? But for right now, she's a canary in coal mine.
Welcome to Political Rehab, smart politics without the hangover. I'm Matt.
And I'm Matt.
Today, the beginning of the end of the Epstein saga, extreme makeover, Marjorie Taylor Greene edition, wagging the dog, Dems rising or falling, and is the Department of Justice collapsing? Plus, in our deep dive segments, Matt GPT will answer why should Republicans hate the Trump tariffs, and we'll hit our weekly That's Bullshit segment on Trump's affordability fantasy. But let's start, as always, with our Trump dump.
That's right. It's time for the Trump dump. It's our version of Festivus, a weekly segment that we air our Trump grievances, because one thing is certain: if you're a Republican, Democrat, independent, cat, dog, it doesn't matter. There is something Trump has done this week that, well, pisses us off. We're also getting out of our system right now. It's kind of detoxifying so we can go on to the show. Let me tell you what's bothering me this week. It's absolutely insane. Now, just take a listen to this.
We're going to be doing a dividend to the people, low and middle income, moderate income people, of at least $2,000. In addition to that, we'll be paying down debt very substantially.
Now, you may be saying, Matt, what's the big deal? Isn't it a good thing to give low and middle income people some relief? Let me tell you what the big deal is. First of all, this is your money. He shouldn't be taking it to begin with. Second, Trump plans to cut checks mid to late 2026. It's a taxpayer-funded bribe perfectly timed for the 2026 election, bought and paid for by you. And since when do Republicans support jacking up taxes on Americans only to mail a fraction of it back with a campaign logo slapped on the envelope? That's not conservatism. That's big government vote buying. And Trump's math, pure fantasy. He talks like tariffs are magic money, able to pay down the national debt and fund refund checks. But guess what? The numbers don't add up, not even close. According to the Tax Foundation, Trump's new tariffs would raise $366 billion. So if low and middle income tax filers and spouses who make $100,000 or less, it still costs us $279 billion. There's zero chance of paying down the debt, and higher income families pay that tax and get nothing back. That's not Republican. That's not conservative. That's straight out of Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren redistribution playbook. Republicans should be furious. Conservatives should be outraged, because this isn't America first. It's big government populism dressed up as patriotism, and it's everything we used to fight against.
I am really stoked about your Trump dump from this week. Coming from the right, as you are, I would like to offer this Trump dump that I think can unite all of us as Americans. Let's look at these exchanges that Trump had with reporters, female reporters, for what it's worth, this week. Let's start with this one.
Mr. President, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein files? Why not just do it now?
It's not the question that I mind, it's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter.
And as if that weren't enough, let's take a look at this one.
Yeah, if there's nothing incriminating in the files,
Yeah. Look, the first thing that really catches me in all of this, and we didn't get all this in the clip, is he called the first reporter's question insubordinate. Now, that's what an authoritarian thinks. He's in charge. We're all his subordinates, including the press. It's, of course, the opposite, by the way. He works for us. He answers to us. And, of course, there's the fact that both of these verbal assaults are reactions to the legitimate question that exists about the Epstein files. Why don't you just release them? His entire unhinged reaction is a big guilty sign around his neck. But the piece that should really frost all of us is what an incredibly rude lowlife we've put into the highest office in the land. Don't forget that Republican Senator Kelly Ayotte, my old friend, lost her 2016 Senate race after saying in a debate that Donald Trump should be a role model for kids. Rightly so that she lost, because is there anyone who looks at this kind of gross treatment of another person, to say nothing of doing it in a professional setting, to say nothing of him being a sexist? Is there anyone who looks at this and who's proud of it? Seriously, to my Trump backing friends out there, are you proud of this? I know this seems like a small thing when you've got a president who literally went to court to avoid having to feed 42 million hungry Americans, who's obese himself, by the way, and throws great Gatsby parties while food pantries run dry. But sometimes It's the irony. And with that, let's get to this week's rundown.
First on the rundown, Epstein. Will the release of the Epstein files end this as a political issue? Look, Trump has now signed the bill releasing the Epstein files. Now, look, I find it kind of funny that we had to go through all of this when Trump could have actually just released the Epstein files anytime he wanted. But this whole signaling to Republicans at the time felt like it could have just been done on Truth Social or something. And I guess if the files are sitting on Pam Bondi's desk, shouldn't take her 30 days to kind of let them out. What I do find fascinating, though, is the reports from the White House that they're going to plan to use these against Democrats. So I guess the question is this the end of a political issue or just the beginning? Matt, what do you think?
I think it's just the beginning. And as a matter of fact, I think there's going to be no end. There's going to be no floor to this for Trump, the MAGA people, the Trump White House. It's going to just keep spiraling out because there are provisions in the bill. Provision is such a terrible word. The bill says that you've got to protect some of the ongoing legal inquiries. What that means is they don't have to release absolutely everything. That means the conspiracy theorists are never going to be satisfied. Look, I said this on my live stream earlier this week. I used to work for David Gergen, the noted presidential advisor. I was his teaching assistant. He had a rule. It was a 3-part rule for dealing with public relations crises. Get it out yourself. Get it out first. Get it all out. He didn't follow that rule. And I think Trump is going to be dealing with this forever. They will never be satisfied no matter how much is put out.
But I think it's also going to be scorched earth. I think if there's a Democrat's name in there at all, we are going to see that over and over again. I don't know if voters are going to care at the end of the day, but it is going to be ugly.
But the Democrats are okay with this, right? Like Larry Summers has already kind of fallen by, he's fallen by the wayside on this. And let's not forget the underlying ugliness here. This is about a shocking, horrible set of crimes. There are victims out there who are demanding that their stories be heard. This is never going to go away because that base has been cried wolf to too many times. They will never be satisfied. So speaking of crazy conspiracy theorists, let's talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been going through a little bit of an extreme makeover, MTG edition. She took the side of Democrats in the ACA subsidy fight during the shutdown. Back in June, she became the first Republican congressperson to call Israel's actions a genocide. She supported the petition to force a vote on the aforementioned Epstein files, and she just apologized for her years of toxic rhetoric. Let's take a look at that.
But we have seen these kinds of attacks or criticism from the president at other people. It's not new. And with respect, I haven't heard you speak out about it until it was directed at you.
Dana, I think that's fair criticism. And I would like to say humbly, I'm sorry for taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country. And it's been something I've thought about a lot, especially since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, is that I'm only responsible for myself and my own words and actions. And I am committed, and I've been working on this a lot lately, to put down the knives in politics.
She says she's committed. Previously, we would have said she should be committed. There are 3 R's of theories of what's going on here. She's either rebranding, she's out for revenge, or she's experiencing genuine remorse. Matt, which is it?
I actually think she's a little bit of a canary in the coal mine here. I think she is in a deep red district. She sees the writing on the wall. Midterms are going to be tough for Republicans. And if we don't start fixing some fundamental problems, we're going to get our butts kicked. And so I think she's actually standing out there saying, look, we got to fix Obamacare. We got to fix this. Now, look, we should have repealed this years ago, but we didn't. Now we're lying in the bed. We got to figure this out. And I think she's just out there warning everybody right now. Now, look, of course, it gets her on Fox News and all the other stations, can raise a ton of money, but it doesn't change that what she's saying is right.
I think she's at the center of a MAGA Venn diagram of all 3 of the R's. She's rebranding a little bit. I think she sees the opportunity to inherit the throne of MAGAdom as Donald Trump's power begins to wane, which we've seen in the recent elections. His grip on the party is slipping. But there's also a revenge element. It's been widely reported that she was snubbed in her aspirations to get a Trump endorsement for the Georgia Senate seat. And maybe there's a glimmer of remorse. Maybe she is beginning to see that clamping down on Jewish space lasers isn't the best thing for herself or for America. Maybe it's all three.
I mean, it very well might be, but I think the fact that she's out there, Trump's calling her Marjorie Taylor Greene, just gets her on everybody's radar. It's kind of like taking a play out of John McCain's playbook, right? Get out there, be the darling of the press. You can then do and say anything, and it's fine for her because her district is safe. She's not going anywhere. And look, it's probably an election year conversion, and who knows what we'll get next week. But for right now, she's the canary in coal mine. But I think really what's interesting right now is, and it may just be coincidence, but
There are no coincidences in politics, my friend.
no, I know there isn't. But the same week Congress votes to release the Epstein file, guess what? Trump voices support to attack inside Mexico and Colombia. He doesn't rule out sending troops to Venezuela. New York Times is reporting that you sign on a secret CIA objective here. I got to ask, is this just a wag the dog move? Or is this legitimate actions that are for good?
This is 100% a wag the dog move. This is 100% Trump's go-to move. We see that he basically practices the rotating credit card theory of political debt. When he gets in trouble on one account, he opens a new account, usually something with a higher political interest rate that's a lot riskier. I believe there's a secret Russia peace deal, about as much as I believe that there's going to be a breakthrough during Trump's absolutely shameful Alaska Putin summit, where he actually ended up becoming a Russian sock puppet. By the way, that sounds like a painful process. I don't want to picture that. I don't believe this any more than that he has a secret plan to replace the Affordable Care Act, or that we have a trade deal with anyone, because he keeps announcing, see, I've made an amazing deal. And it turns out there's never really a deal. It's a distraction unless and until proven otherwise. Remember Ronald Reagan's trust but verify? This is distrust, delouse, debunk, verify, roll your eyes, verify again, and then wait 5 minutes for him to flip-flop.
Yeah, but we are now finally, don't forget, we're also going to shut down the Department of Education. I mean, after all the talk, all the Doge, all the stuff from earlier this year, now guess what? This week, hey, shut down the Department of Education. I mean, we've only, as Republicans, been asking for this for decades, but hey, now's as good a time as any. Look, and it's also great seeing a bunch of drug boats blowing up on TV. It does make for good television, but I think it is both. I think it's a distraction. I think there's probably some good policy here and there, but at the end of the day, it's exactly what you just said. It is about changing the subject so nobody looks at what's happening over here. We can do this. He's a New Yorker. He knows what three-card Monte is.
There's about as much good policy in there as there is number of times per day that a broken clock is right. Like, occasionally you're going to mix. I mean, of course, if you bomb 20 fishing boats, it's possible that someone had a bag of drugs on there. If you're going to kill 70 people or just out for a cruise off the waters of Venezuela, you may have someone who had a dime bag in their possession. So, I mean, maybe by accident, he got someone who's running drugs. There's credible reporting, by the way, from Jonathan Larson of, believe it or not, his Substack is called The Fucking News. Very credible reporting that the same people who are behind the whole release the Kraken, big lie, conspiracy theory stuff, they're the same people who are pumping up the Venezuela intel and telling Trump that there's a big drug problem. Speaking of problems in Magaland, let's go into the upside down. Let's talk about the Democrats. I've been talking about this a lot recently on my live stream. 2 weeks ago, Democrats were huge wins in New Jersey and Virginia. Agreement on the big pivot to the affordability message, uniting the progressive left and the moderate center, reversals of voting trends among Latino voters from 2024, massive turnarounds. If you look at New Jersey counties that are 60% or more Latino, they all flipped bigly over to the Democrats. and then the 8 Democratic senators who made the deal to end the shutdown, with Chuck Schumer saying, I'm shocked to discover that there's deal making going on. Suddenly, we're in a DEFCON 1 freak out, a full circular firing squad on the left. And the question was whether we could stop fighting about who would topple which leaders when, to focus on beating Donald Trump. Are the Democrats up or down, Matt?
Oh, I think they are down. I think it is a civil war. I absolutely love this. And let me tell you why. In New Jersey and in Virginia, women voters, 60% went for the Democrat. Now, that's a problem when 52% of the voters vote for the Democrat in large majorities like that. And so, look, I think our only shot for Republicans to win next year is for Democrats to keep fighting with themselves. I mean, I think they caved on the shutdown. I think they're too busy electing socialists and somewhere else. I love this. I am getting my popcorn. I'm going to sit there and watch this with bated breath and hope it just is a complete collapse, because it might be the only thing that's going to save us next November.
Let me say au contraire, mon frere, because you underestimate the power of hatred of a loathsome opponent. Right now, the Democrats are the Athenians and the Spartans uniting to fight Xerxes, like in that documentary 300. We're going to be held together. No matter how much we're determined to wreck ourselves, we're going to be held together by the emergency in front of us. And that is going to keep us united enough to get us through 2026. And then, yes, I think then you're right. Then we're going to have to battle it out internally within the Democratic Party over the future direction of the party. And we're going to do that through the presidential nomination process and trying to determine who our standard bearer is going to be. And let me just say, the other thing that's going in Democrats' favor right now, the little bit of win we're getting at our backs, is the redistricting push is surprisingly even. It's only 9-6 in terms of seats that have tilted one way or the other in this round of gerrymandering going on. Federal judge just struck down the Texas gerrymander, so that's going to the Supreme Court. And that movement I mentioned among Latinos, it suggests that the Texas gerrymanders may not even work. It may be a dummy mander, especially when the generic ballot is +5 for Democrats right now. So I think things are
but you still got Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer front and center on television. That's a mess for you.
Could we get them to go to a nice deli for the next year?
That
Slice of
might
pizza?
be the best option. Last one on this one. The Department of Justice. Is it collapsing? Look, this week, like Lindsay Halligan, U.S. attorney, handpicked by Donald Trump to bring a case against Comey. She's never tried a case. Kind of the indictment came back that there were some issues, some problems here. Let everybody sort of know what's happened. But, look, here's the thing. If Comey or Letitia James have done something wrong, they should be prosecuted. But I got to tell you, even to me, this looks like weaponization of the DOJ. It was no good under Biden. It's no good now. We got to stop that as sort of our political hall pass. But I ask you, does this give some life to the Democrats? Are they collapsing? Where are we here?
Well, the DOJ is definitely collapsing. I don't think that there was much weaponization going on under Joe Biden. After all, he did end up having his own son prosecuted. It's hard to say that they're going after the destruction of our judicial branch and the arm of federal law enforcement with quite the same aplomb as Donald Trump is. This recent deep dive piece in the New York Times interviewing 60 recent departers from the Department of Justice is really eye-opening. They describe being asked to drop cases for political reasons, find evidence for flimsy investigations, take positions in court that they thought had no legitimate basis. We've seen this play out, as you mentioned, in the Halligan, Comey, and Letitia James prosecutions. And remember, Lindsay Halligan screwed up so badly on procedure in the Comey case that the case is falling apart. Look, this is a catch-22. I wrote about this a year ago in Newsweek. There was a huge catch-22 for Donald Trump. He had bought into this insanity that he started, that there's a deep state arrayed against him. So he was going to fire everybody. This was part of Project 2025 that your boys over in the Heritage Foundation cooked up. And lo and behold, when you get rid of competent professionals, you end up with incompetent amateurs. And now they are shitting the bed. I'm shocked to discover this.
Shocked to discover. Look, I think the real issue here, which I think is much greater, is that for some reason, Republicans have this mindset that because Democrats did it or perceived to do it, that it's okay for us to do it too. And that just goes against everything as a Republican we've always believed. I mean, we always thought law and order. We always promoted adherence to the Constitution. And now all of a sudden we're directing Pam Bondi to look into the Democrats, into the Epstein case. We're looking at Pam Bondi to go after our political opponents. And we're making it as a made-for-TV conversation. It's wrong. It shouldn't happen. And it's definitely falling apart.
Have you seen the financial ties that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi have and how corrupt they are? This is, you ask if it's corrupt, it's collapsing. The corruption is driving collapse. There's more to come on this. More to come. Okay.
Well, without question. I mean, like you said, if you put in competent people, you get incompetent results.
With that, and I agree with that last point, let's get to one of our favorite segments where we ask some burning questions of our resident AI, Matt GPT.
You know, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. He is an importer. He's an importer of actually gift wrap. So this is his busy time. But he was saying all the tariffs are causing all kinds of problems. And he was complaining about it. One of his employees said, I don't know what the problem is. Like, foreign governments pay for this stuff. And he looked he looked mad even telling this story. So I thought, you know what? Let's ask
Matt GPT. I have a question. Who pays for Trump's tariffs?
That's a great question. What exactly is a tariff? A tariff is a tax on imported goods charged the moment those goods enter the country. And when the importer gets hit with that extra cost, one of two things happen. One, they absorb the loss themselves, or two, the extra cost is passed down the supply chain. Prices go up, household budgets get squeezed, and businesses struggle to absorb the blow. That's economics 101. The simple truth is this: tariffs are a massive tax on the American people. They don't punish foreign governments, they punish American consumers.
If tariffs are taxes, why do Republicans support them?
Now you're getting to the heart of the problem. When Trump brags about raising billions through tariffs, he is really celebrating taking more money out of the pockets of hard-working Americans. Republicans are becoming the party of higher taxes. By placing their trust in Donald Trump above all else, they've risked eroding the very foundation of free market conservatism. Tariffs don't promote prosperity, they suffocate it. Real growth comes from hard work, innovation, and free enterprise, not top-down government interference disguised as patriotism. Here's what Reagan said about tariffs.
Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition.
That's not some AI-generated clip. That's what Republicans believed for decades. And the turmoil and chaos surrounding Trump's tariffs and the resulting trade war reflect an economic nationalism and protectionism that is unlikely to create a new golden age for America. History suggests it results not in prosperity, but in business failures, job losses, and broad economic instability. There have been a handful of Republicans that have begun to show signs of having a backbone, but instead of being applauded for trying to reassert Congress's role as a co-equal branch of government, they were attacked, they were ridiculed, branded as rhinos, targeted for primary challenges, and treated as traitors for daring to put the Constitution and their convictions above personal allegiance to Trump. Reagan agreed that tariffs can be effective as a negotiating tactic, but as a long-term economic policy, tariffs are a tool of socialism, replacing innovation and competition with central planning and political favoritism. Tariffs don't strengthen capitalism, they undermine it. And then there's the growing government control over private business, one where bureaucrats pick winners and losers, dictate prices, and steer markets. This isn't conservatism, it's MAGA socialism. And make no mistake, it's no better than the socialism being pushed by AOC or Mondani. Supporting socialism while wearing a red hat doesn't make it less destructive or less toxic.
It's morning again in America.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And I want you to know that also, I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
Oh, the AI! It started going off into a right-wing fever dream where it was sort of glazing Ronald Reagan. So I had to cut it off there. Sorry, AI. We'll come back to you with Matt GPT 6 once we've made a few modifications and you stop going off the right-wing rails. By the way, can I just say that last piece of hallucination, the dream state that your AI avatar went into, that Mondale, the look on Mondale's face there.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
Oh, it was, because Mondale's a smart man, right? And he looks at this and he's going, that was really funny. And oh my gosh, my campaign's over. I'm so funny.
It's over. It's done. With one line, it's done. I know AI can make mistakes, but I kind of enjoyed that.
I enjoyed it very much. It was just, you could see the AI beginning to spiral.
Oh, it was spinning. It was spinning. That's where it was going.
That was really weird. Your AI avatar it's spot on. I like how they tried to make you look smarter by putting glasses on.
It was amazing. Like it's for somehow you put those glasses on, it's not just Clark Kent, like it conveys smartness.
I guess that implies that Superman is underneath. All right. With
I
that,
didn't say that. I mean, if you want to say that, that's fine. But
that's fine. With that, let's get to our weekly look at everyone's favorite part of politics and modern life.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Bullshit.
A bullshit?
There's a crisis in America that's so obvious, even conservative figures from Fox News like Bret Baier get it.
Basically, inflation and how people feel about the economy.
Maybe people are concerned about rising prices, grocery prices in particular.
But President Donald Trump is trying to sell a completely different version of reality, a made-up fantasy that he's pushing as if his political life depends on it, because it does.
And why are people saying they're anxious about the economy? Why are they saying that?
I don't know that they are saying. I think polls are fake. We have the greatest economy we've ever had.
But that's bullshit. The economy is on track to grow, but less than 3% this year. It's pretty average historically. And people are very much saying that the economy sucks. This is the most respected source of Americans' views on the economy, the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index. It's not just plunged in the past year since Donald Trump was elected. It's at a lower level than during the oil shock stagflation crisis of the late 1970s, the brutal 1982 recession, and the Great Recession of 2008. The good news for Donald Trump is it's not at the lowest level in history. It's at the second lowest, right behind the way people felt in the depths of the pandemic, but it's closing in. And honestly, people don't care that much about overall economic growth. The biggest problem they're facing is that they can't afford the basics of life. Trump has a new line he's been pushing on that one, too.
So Walmart, which everybody trusts, and I trust, they talk about the cost of Thanksgiving. For Joe Biden, it was 25% more than it is for me. That's a tremendous number. It's the biggest reduction in cost in the history of that chart or whatever it is they do.
But that's bullshit, as reporters have been falling all over themselves to point out.
President Trump can't stop talking about Walmart's Thanksgiving meal basket.
The White House has been touting the fact that the Walmart Thanksgiving meal this year costs 25% less than it did a year ago.
Trump isn't mentioning something really important, and that is that this year's Walmart basket is not the same as last year's basket. Most notably, it includes significantly fewer items, 15 products compared to 21.
But it also contains less.
Well, I haven't heard that.
You see that pecan pie in last year's basket? It's gone this year. You see those mini marshmallows? Gone this year. You see how last year's version included both sweet potatoes and russet potatoes? This year's only has the russet potatoes. You just can't measure inflation based on any one company's holiday promotion, and you certainly can't do it when that promotion is different.
So you're telling me that if you buy less stuff, you'll usually pay less. Trump's final gambit has been a different kind of water muddying, a combination of restating what the word groceries means.
Groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word, the groceries.
And what prices going up means.
When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price.
Followed by the last refuge of this particular scoundrel, calling the whole idea of people being able to afford things a hoax.
They have this new word called affordability, and the Democrats make it up.
But you don't even need me to tell you.
So what are grocery prices doing? They are up 2.7% this September compared to last September, and they're up 1.4% since President Trump returned to office in January.
And when pressed on this bovine secretion coming out of Trump's mouth, Kevin Hassett, director of the National Economic Council, had to admit that actually, it's not that things are getting better, it's that they're getting worse slower.
When the president says that grocery prices are down, what numbers is he basing that off, given that's not true?
The point is that inflation is way down.
Grocery prices are up. Household prices, we certainly have covered that, energy as well, but grocery prices are up about 1.4% since Trump took office.
Right, which is a big decline in the rate of inflation.
But to be clear, inflation is far below the crisis level of 9%, that rate that it hit during the summer of 2022. Inflation has been on the rise again, though, lately, and prices rose 3% in September.
Look, to be clear, inflation was through the roof in 2022, and economists agree that President Biden's COVID relief spending probably pushed it a little higher. They also agree that the vast majority of inflation was because of the COVID pandemic disrupting global supply chains. That's why inflation was sky high all around the world. And if you give Biden some blame, you also have to give him some credit for the fact that inflation came down further and faster in America than anywhere else. But the bottom line is, high prices, the cost of living, Those were the number one reasons that voters gave for supporting Donald Trump in 2024. The idea that Democrats just invented these as issues is insane. If they wanted to invent issues, it would be stuff like liberals are too sexy, or is it a problem that Donald Trump has gotten into 4,000 lawsuits in his life? Oh, wait. You don't need me to tell you that everything costs too damn much. Prices are still going up, and Trump's insane policies are making things worse. As for the idea that Thanksgiving dinner is magically cheaper now, good luck selling that turkey. Or, as my friend here would say,
Bullshit.
Fantastic. What a great opening to That's Bullshit.
Oh, the inaugural That's Bullshit is bringing a smile to my face. I've wanted to call out the bullshit in no uncertain terms and in full profanity mode for a long time. And this show is giving me the opportunity to do that. And it's kind of delightful.
And you know what? Everything you said is what Americans across the country are feeling. So,
you know,
it's also true.
Well, speaking of things that people are feeling, and look, at the risk of moving from the lowest valley to the highest mountaintop and giving everyone political whiplash, I'd like to pivot to our closing segment of the week. We always like to close with a dose of hope. Matt's first. Why don't you go first? What's your dose of hope?
Keeping with the dose of hope and the morning coffee prices are going to be lower. Trump is lowering tariffs on coffee, beef, and bananas. It's at least a realization, not just a temporary one, that you just can't act reckless in a global economy and expect not to pay the price. And that's not the only thing that's changing. Republicans in Washington are starting to show signs of life. They might even be growing a backbone. The release of the Epstein files was a sign that Republicans in Congress are starting to see that anger brewing across the country. They're listening, they're reacting, they're starting to take their job seriously as a co-equal branch of government. I don't know if this will last a long time or if this is just a holiday miracle. It's hard to say. But what I do know is nothing motivates them more than the possibility of losing their job next year. So I kind of expect next year we're going to start seeing a lot more of those things.
It's funny, going back 20 years ago, I thought that Republicans were against stem cell research, but apparently you figured out in a lab how to regrow spines, and it's delightful, and it's making me feel a little bit better. I have to say, the kind of global expression of, Donald, we're good on all this, was just, it brought a smile to my face, and it is hopeful for the future. Mine is another expression of that exact same sentiment. I think the tide on gerrymandering is turning. I mean, first, as I mentioned earlier, a federal judge declared that the Texas 2025 hyper-partisan power grab redrawn map that Donald Trump insisted on is likely racially gerrymandered, and he blocked it. And now, look, to be sure, that is going to go to the Supreme Court. Who knows what they'll do? They may actually allow all kinds of racial gerrymandering in the future. Who knows? But this isn't just an isolated data point. Republican legislators in Indiana and Nebraska and New Hampshire, including my friends, my old peeps in New Hampshire, I mean that genuinely, have resisted Trump's pressure for more partisan power grabs. And they're doing it because their voters, their Republican base voters, are against it. They're saying, no, we don't want it. And so the pressure is building against the partisan gerrymandering. And I would argue that's a good thing. It's great, in fact, for America and for the Republican Party in particular. Look, I'm against partisan gerrymandering because I'm a Democrat, and far and away, Republicans have leveraged it a lot more to their advantage to try to screw the Democratic Party. But I'm also against it because creating hyper-partisan hothouse districts leads to extremes. In districts where you only need to win the Republican primary to become a member of Congress or a state legislator, the number one factor for success for Republicans has been getting the endorsement of Donald Trump, which has allowed him to have a hammerlock on the party. And so if you break that vicious cycle, you're going to claw back some of that hammerlock on the Republican Party. And on the Dem side, look, the record's a lot more mixed, but still, there's no doubt that what Democrats should want is candidates who can win general elections and reflect where American voters are. And so breaking Trump's grip on the Republican Party, giving Democrats an actual law-abiding conservative counterpart to compete against, having parties who actually have to win voters who have a mix of views, all of that is a step in the right direction.
And America works when you have three co-equal branches of government. And the fact that the redistricting and Republicans starting to grow the spine gives me a lot of hope.
I am feeling just a little dose of hope. And speaking of which, I have to say the medication has been dispensed and we are done. Our time is up for this session of Political Rehab. And we will see you at next week's appointment.